Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, President Biden says a hostage deal is very close in the Middle East. More on this possible agreement to free some hostages held by Hamas. And the president also gives an update on the progress to counter the flow of fentanyl into the United States.
And after wet weather on Tuesday, we are tracking an awesome forecast for Thanksgiving. Those details coming up as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Israel and Hamas may have a deal which would see a wave of hostages released. The U.S. and Qatar helped broker the agreement, which the president says could happen very soon. CBS's Natalie Brand has more from the White House.
Families of hostages taken in the October 7th Hamas attacks lit candles in Tel Aviv and prayed for the safe return of their loved ones.
I think the only thing that I could call justice is bringing everyone back home.
Their renewed plea comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is seeking government approval for a deal that would lead to the release of dozens of hostages. In exchange, there would be a 6-hour pause in fighting for 4 days. Sources familiar with the agreement tell CBS News. The deal would allow for an initial group of 50 hostages to be released in phases, with Israel releasing 3 Palestinian prisoners for each hostage held by Hamas.
We are hopeful to have some good news for the hostages and their families. We're hopeful we can start bringing some of them home. But as I said at the outset, we are not quite there yet.
Among the hostages are 10 Americans, including a 3-year-old. Children will be prioritized as part of the deal the U.S. helped negotiate.
We're now very close, very close. We could bring some of these hostages home very soon. But I don't want to get into the details of things because nothing is done until it's done.
The deal would also allow more aid, including fuel and supplies into Gaza, where civilians are desperate for food and water. For now, fighting in the region rages on, with Israeli forces moving into a town 2.5 miles north of Gaza City. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
The approval process is lengthy, with Israel's War Cabinet, the Security Cabinet, the full government, and the Supreme Court all having to sign off on a prisoner exchange. Once approved, it could take hours, if not days, to get the hostages out.
Well, after a soggy morning and afternoon across the mountains, we are tracking a slow drying trend into this evening. Here's a look at First Alert Pinpoint Doppler. For most of us, we are getting a break from those showers besides our friends in the Big Sandy Valley, zooming into portions of Letcher County, also Lee and Wise counties in Virginia, and same story for Pike County into Buchanan and Dickinson counties as well. Nothing too heavy, but some more drizzle. Also, light showers continue into this evening. And here is a live look from soggy downtown Pikeville. That current temperature of 53 degrees, and most of us in the middle to upper 50s at this hour, sitting at 54 in Irvin, also Jackson, 56 for Manchester and London, and 55 over in Somerset for Pulaski County at this hour. Now, the wet weather is all thanks to this cold front, also this upper level low spinning close to Chicago, also Michigan. And once this front passes, we are cooler and drier for Wednesday before a fantastic forecast on the way by Thursday, also on Black Friday. All those details coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
All right, Cameron, thank you. President Biden announced new steps taken as his administration works to counter the flow of fentanyl into the United States. The American Medical Association says fentanyl takes the life of an American every 5 minutes. CBS's Michael George has more.
It really is an American tragedy.
President Biden gathered top White House officials for a meeting on how to stop the flow of illegal fentanyl, a highly lethal synthetic drug. The CDC reports overdose deaths involving opioids, primarily fentanyl, continue to climb, killing nearly 73,000 Americans in 2022.
Too many is going to face looking at an empty chair for the first time at Thanksgiving.
The president wants to seize the momentum following last week's Asia-Pacific Economic Forum. Mr. Biden secured commitments from the presidents of Mexico and China to curb fentanyl trafficking and production.
China's already taken steps to shut down companies dealing in illicit trade of precursor chemicals.
Even small amounts of fentanyl are deadly.
Half a pill with a few grains in there, killed her within minutes.
Derek Kidd is taking the story of his 17-year-old son, Sebastian, to as many schools in Iowa as he can. He says his son thought he was taking Percocet to deal with physical and emotional pain. He obtained pills through a contact on Snapchat.
These social media companies allow, with these apps, to, for anybody to go online and purchase these illicit drugs and have them delivered to your doorstep if you're so inclined.
The kids hope telling Sebastian's story will help loosen the stigma around drug addiction and encourage young people who are struggling to ask for the help they need. Michael George, CBS News.
The Biden administration is announcing what it hails as the single largest investment in environmental justice. The program takes the form of $2 billion in grants supporting local clean energy efforts in underserved areas. Today's announcement kicks off a year-long process for communities to apply for the grants. The money, which comes from the Inflation Reduction Act, is expected to fund at least 150 projects at $10 to $20 million each. The group using the 14th Amendment to try and get Donald Trump off Colorado's presidential ballot has appealed a lower court ruling to the Colorado Supreme Court. A district court judge ruled Trump engaged in an insurrection on January 6, 2021, but concluded the 14th Amendment's insurrectionist ban does not apply to presidents. The amendment says officials who take an oath to support the Constitution are banned from future office if they engaged in insurrection. The Commission on Presidential Debates announced the 3 dates and locations of the 2024 presidential debates. The first one will take place on September 16th at Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas. The third and final presidential debate will take place on October 9th at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. Virginia State University will also be the first historically black college or university to host a presidential debate. Senior Kaylin Hay is the president of Virginia State University's Student Government Association. Hay was taken aback when she heard about the university being selected for the honor.
I was really surprised. It usually would go to a Howard, a Spelman, larger institutions. The next president of the United States will be walking on the same grounds as I'm walking on today. So it says a lot.
Now that will be the second presidential debate, and it will take place on October 1st of next year. The billionaire founder of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange and his company pleaded guilty to federal money laundering violations today. The settlement calls for Binance to pay more than $4 billion in fines and penalties. Changpeng Zhao, the company's CEO, agreed to step down from the post of the exchange he founded. Federal prosecutors accused Binance of a calculated effort to profit from the U.S. market, steering clear of U.S. laws.
Binance has agreed to plead guilty to willfully violating the Bank Secrecy Act, knowingly failing to register as a money-transmitting business, and willfully violating the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The Justice Department is requiring Binance to pay $4.3 billion in penalties and forfeitures.
U.S. authorities say this is the largest corporate resolution to include criminal charges for an executive. NHL player Milan Lucic was arraigned today in Boston on a charge of assault and battery. The Boston Bruins forward was arrested early Saturday morning. A police report showed his wife had called 911 and claimed Lucic tried to choke her after he could not find his phone. The report says his wife declined treatment and denied being strangled when asked by the responding officers. A not guilty plea was entered on Lucic's behalf during the arraignment. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, a new survey shows about 9 in 10 workers would prefer a 4-day work week. Tips to help you find a job that fits your preferred working environment.
And the forecast is looking better for the second half of this week. Your holiday travel forecast coming up after this break.